Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Journey into Comics with your hosts, Nate Phillips and Branden Stone.
I am a god, you dull creature.
Rockin'.
I really like that intro. It's a lot of fun. So, hey everybody, it's we're celebrating the 4th of July. And as you heard, we officially have our co-host for Journey into Comics. Branden, welcome back, buddy.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be on the show on a permanent basis. I had a lot of fun last time.
I did too. It was quite a blast. I've listened to that. I don't know. We got like on both episodes around 45 plays, which is pretty shocking for the length of time that episode was. I've listened to it like 3 times. So
Awesome. Yes,
so
I
really
listened to it too. I listened to I don't know if I listened to the second. I know I listened to a little bit of the first one to hear what the level sounded like in the car, and I liked it. I thought it was really cool, a lot of fun. I'm glad to be doing this. I've wanted to do this for a while.
All right, so for everybody who is unfamiliar with Branden, if you missed last time in our last episode that was an epic 2-parter that lasted over 2.5 hours, I'm going to let Branden talk for a few minutes and give you little details about himself, and we'll go from there.
Well, I know Nate from growing up. We went to school together, and then, we formed a band together. The band that he's gone on about here on the podcast, and the band that supplied the intro clip, Traxxas. We were co-founding members of, and I've come and gone a couple different times. I still consider myself a member of the family, and as you can see, me and Nate are still within, talking and still close. But I'm a pretty avid gamer. I moved into gaming collecting probably about the same time he was getting into comic collecting. So it's kind of a neat little dichotomy there with him on one side and me on the other. So when he said he was doing a podcast, I was like, man, he beat me to the punch because I wanted to do that. I got a couple podcasts I listen to, and a lot of the gamers I watch on YouTube have their own podcast, and I listen to that quite a bit. And when he said he wanted to have me on, I jumped at it. And then when he asked me to be a part of it, I jumped on that even quicker. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'd love to be on.
Yeah, and it's funny, Brando. I don't know if you remember this, man, but I'm going like art class in 2003 or 2004. Do you remember us talking that we always wanted to have a radio show?
Oh, of course. And that was actually one of my career goals at one point, was to want to go into that. Unfortunately, when you get into it and you have to go to school for broadcasting, journalism, and all that stuff. When you get into it, it takes a long time to get to where you want to be with making the kind of money that you are. And I've always wanted to just do it for fun. And now we have that outlet to do that, and I want to thank you for allowing me to join you in this outlet.
Hey, you don't have to thank me. I just hope we can get our other co-host to come on someday, get Mr. Lowry in here, because I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Oh man, it'd be really neat to get the three of us and just communicate. I'm not sure how much of a direction we would have for it. I think it'd be a little bit all over the place, but it would be a blast to listen to.
Hey, that's okay. That is okay. So, how's the car?
The car is not fixed yet, unfortunately. For people who weren't listening when I was a guest on the show 2 episodes ago, the reason why I wasn't in the studio with Nate the first time is because we had a little incident with the car hitting a deer. We've taken it to a place. We waited to hear back. They never got back, so we decided to wait until after the holiday on Monday, bright and early, to go into Lafayette and try and see if we can't get this darn car fixed.
Man, I really hope it gets fixed. It'd be epic to have you in studio in the near future.
I definitely want to be there.
Oh, I know. So, Branden has mentioned a little bit about some of his background. What else is it that you do for people that don't know much about yourself?
Well, I have a couple different hobbies. As I said, I'm an avid gamer. I game on current systems, retro systems, got really into retro collecting. And then as another hobby, I also ghost hunt when I can. And we've got a little group over here where I'm at, and we've gone on a couple different hunts. One place where we went has actually now been on television. and we went before they filmed, and we went the weekend before their episode aired, and that show was on Ghost Adventures. And the place I'm talking about, I'm going to go in like some little Quentin Tarantino order of telling this story, but you're going to get the information. It was Thornhaven Manor over in Newcastle, Indiana.
That's awesome.
So that's a lot of fun. The more work, I think, is going over the evidence afterwards, sitting right here in a computer chair for hours upon end, listening to 4 or 5 different recorders worth of information and audio that you caught over a span of 8 to 10 hours is just overwhelming.
No, I mean, we did a ghost hunt here, as you recall, which I do believe was your first.
Yes, it was it. It was just basically an EVP session that we kind of did at your house, and that was really what got me hooked because we caught such strong evidence of that. And maybe down below, if anybody wants to hear that clip that I'm talking about, I have it up on SoundCloud. So maybe in the description of this episode, we can put up a link to that SoundCloud if people want to hear that clip.
Absolutely. Yes, the answer is they do want to hear it because the shit that's in this house is terrifying. That's the only way I can say it. It's legit terrifying. Like, it's weird because, I don't live here anymore, so I've kind of detached my emotion from it. But there for a while, it was hard to go upstairs without being like, I know what's in that room. I don't know what it is, but I know something's there.
Well, that one clip, it's pretty cool for the first thing we ever caught. But we also caught a lot of other stuff that I'll try to get up onto my Ghost Hunt group's SoundCloud, because we got some other stuff that was kind of trippy as well, if you remember that, Nate.
I do. I remember, we had some knocking. Someone said your name, I do believe.
Yes. And then we also got and we mind you, during this time we were doing band practice, and we left a recorder up there during the whole band practice to see if maybe we would annoy it with our noise, and we caught what sounded like our friend Tony, who was downstairs playing guitar, and it sounded like his voice was upstairs.
Yeah, I totally, yeah. And I also remember, wasn't there like cell phone interference, even though there was no cell phone anywhere near the recorder?
Yeah. There was some sort of electromagnetic interference going on for almost an hour-long period of that. That was pretty interesting as well.
That is very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to take over for a second. Brando, feel free if you can. Talk a little bit about new comics. I honestly have not been reading a ton of the comics that I normally read. What I do is, with Marvel, they've got the download code. I just put the code in, and then I can just read on the iPad whenever I have free time. But that means that I've kind of slacked off on some DC stuff. So I'm really behind on anything DC, and I want to apologize for that. But I want to go over a few of the titles that came out this past week and talk about quickly what I read. Out of all the titles that came out this week, the one that kind of has me talking the most is this, what do you call it? I guess they call them events now, that Marvel is doing, called Original Sin. And the idea for Original Sin is that the Watcher gets murdered, and it's a whodunit, who killed the Watcher. And it comes to light that Nick Fury is ancient, like he's over 200 years old. Like, it's really cool. They're 5 issues in. I'm sure they'll have a trade paperback of it in 6 months. It's different. Marvel usually has battling between, the good guys and the good guys for dumb reasons, and this is just like you can't trust anybody, so it has a different feel to that. There's another series I picked up that Image put out called Cowl, Cowl. I haven't started reading it, but look for a review in the future because it looks to be really good. It's about Chicago, normal people in Chicago who become quote-unquote superheroes just by doing good for people. So that's all I've got for comics right now. I know we're a whole podcast about comics, and I don't have much for it, but we have other things involving comics, so do
Nate,
not worry.
real quick, you said the Original Sin storyline. How many issues is that going?
Only 8. It is
Only
8
8?
issues.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's over halfway done.
Okay.
And one thing I'm big into is I used to be huge into it, and I've kind of cut down now. Not as rambunctious about it. I used to really be really into getting all the variants that I could find for
Yeah.
each issue. Original Sin, I was like, I'm not getting any of the variants. I'm done with variants. I'm over it. I've spent too much time hunting. I don't need variants. I want to read the story. That's the first thing. And then I walked into 10th Planet. That's the comic shop I go to. And the first variant cover for Original Sin was Captain America holding an eyeball. I was like, that's really cool. So I bought it. And then the next issue came out for Original Sin, and it was Thor holding an eyeball. And I was like, okay, I'm sold. So now they've had, in order, it was Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, Winter Soldier, and Wolverine have all had a variant cover where they've been holding the eye. Luckily enough, though, those variants were still regular retail price, so I didn't have to actually pay anything more than I would have, which is good.
That's good. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I got a lot of the variants for Age of Ultron, and that was before I knew it was even going to be a movie. I just liked the idea of the storyline. Ultron takes over the entire Earth, That was last year's Marvel massive event, and I got 90% of the variants and spent way too much money on that. So we won't go there, but we will talk about, we're only a month away from what I consider to be an action-packed month of movies, August. August has so much coming out. Mainly in the comic book world, there are only 3 movies that come out in August. There are probably only 2 of those 3 movies that are going to be great, and one that I don't really have an opinion on, other than, well, we'll get to it. So I will start, and I'll talk a little bit about Guardians, as I have countless episodes of Journey into Comics. The more I see teasers and stuff, I think Guardians is going to be the shocker of the year. It's going to come out with its hands up, and it's going to blow through everything. I think it's going to threaten the Avengers record for all-time highest grossing.
Really?
But I actually think that it's not gonna threaten it in its first go round. What I can see them doing is it'll have a really huge opening. It'll probably break 100 mil. And then I see them actually doing another release of it just in the winter during like holiday season.
Okay.
Just as kind of a like, hey, you didn't forget, because movies are only in theaters for 2 months.
Yeah, roughly maybe. It depends on how well they do, really.
And I think Avatar had a second showing, right?
I think it did.
It did its first showing, and they showed it, and it still did decent at the box office, and that's how they're the number one. Marvel being, or the Avengers being, the number one comic book movie of all time. As of right now, we'll see where that stands. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the torch over to Mr. Branden. What do you think about Sin City, A Dame to Kill For?
I am so excited for this movie. I loved the original film, and surprisingly enough, I didn't actually see the original one in theaters. I didn't get a chance to, but when it came out, I bought it, and has got to be up there with one of my most purchased movies of all time, because I don't really purchase movies after I buy them unless I'm upgrading them. And
Yep, me too.
I bought the original, and then I bought the extended cut that came with the digital, not digital. I'm sorry, the graphic novel of Marv's story in there, and then I bought it on the extended cut on Blu-ray when that came out. But this movie's been a long time in the making, and I like Frank Miller's style. I love his Dark Knight Returns story. I love some of his other works, and I love the Sin City, the grit and the violence, and I love film noir. I'm a big sucker for that, and it's like Sin City takes all that together and puts it all into one film, and I am just ecstatic for that this movie's finally coming out, because it's been, for me, as I said, years in the making for me, and what that scares me too, because it has a lot to live up to. But they've got a lot of great guys in it. They almost got everyone back from the original. Plus, they've added a lot of great actors into the mix. And when this comes out, I'm wondering if they're going to do the same thing. And this is going to be just like last time, where I'm going to buy the movie when it comes out, and then they're going to have an extended cut. So I'm not sure if I'm going to go right out and get it right when it comes out, in fear of that, because I don't want to buy movies more than I have to.
Well,
But
they'll also package it with the first one, so you might end up with
Mhm.
2 copies of the first one.
You see, that's a good point, because it's been so long since the first one. A lot of people have seen it, but people may have not, seen that. People who have grown up since then, who were kids maybe when that came out 10 years ago. Now, when they buy this, they're like, oh, well, I get the first and second one. Awesome. So, yeah, you are correct. They could definitely do that. I'll probably try to stay away from that packaging bundle. But there's also another really big comic-oriented film coming out in August, and this film, I'm pretty sure this is the same one we're talking about. You said you don't have much an opinion on, and I'll just go out on a limb and say that I am definitely leery of this film.
Look, all I'm saying, and for those of you who don't know what film we're talking about, we are talking about the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Brando, to me, Michael Bay, right from the start, as soon as it was announced, Michael Bay is doing a Turtles movie, I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, same way, yeah.
And then it surfaces online that the Turtles are not teenagers, and they aren't mutants, they're aliens.
I remember that.
And it was like a lynch mob. I think Michael Bay probably had more death threats in 24 hours than Charles Manson's had in the last 50 years. I mean, nerds, man. You don't piss us off, because we just keep things how they are. Why do you got to change so much?
Our generation is getting to the point of how old we're getting. We grew up with the original cartoon of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, inspired from the original comic. And I didn't read the comic back then. I knew the cartoon, and I knew the live action movies of that time. But a lot of us grew up with that. And when you go, you're messing with someone's childhood. It's like Michael Bay did it with Transformers. Then he moved up a couple years. Now he's doing Turtles. And my opinion on Transformers is for another podcast. That could be a whole podcast. But for Ninja Turtles, I am definitely scared of what he's going to do with it, because yeah, you've got to market it to today's audience, to the younger audience, but there's also going to be plenty of audience from our generation that see that name, see that brand, and go, ooh, oh, wait, do I want to see it or not? Because it could, I could walk out of that theater completely disappointed.
Well, and it's funny you say that, and I knew this was going to happen this year, and I kind of, I guess I kind of predicted it. In one of the Lost episodes, that, like I said, someday they will be completely outdated, because I'm talking about all the movies that come out this year. Duh. So they're like going to be past. But in the Lost episode, I talked about how I thought, honestly, I was more nervous to go see X-Men, because X-Men had big shoes to fill and fixing a lot of problems that were created from previous X-Men movies. This is a new series. Michael Bay has taken it over. And first of all, here are the negatives that I see. Shredder looks like a Transformer, and that's a big no-no. He's just a dude. He's just a samurai dude. He doesn't need to have ultra-mechanical armor of death that shoots laser beams. It's pointless. You're fighting 4 turtles and a rat.
I agree.
Lasers?
Well, I mean, another thing that you said, Michael Bay is definitely involved with this, but he's actually not the one directing it.
Yeah, I know. That's what's even weirder. I mean, and the crazy thing is, it looks, from a cinematic standpoint, it looks like it could be really good. Mm-hmm. The story is the base issue that I have. And I believe he wrote it. I feel like, unless he's just producing it, which I don't see how that would even make any sense if he's only the producer, because it has Michael Bay scattered all across it,
Oh, of course. When you look at the trailer, it looks like a Transformers trailer with turtles.
It really does.
That's kind of what I see on it. And when you see a Michael Bay movie, you're gonna get explosions, explosions, hot girls, explosions. It violence. I'm not trying to put it down every movie that he's ever done, but he definitely has a negative air about him right now. After the last two Transformers movies, and to the point where it's like, how long can you keep doing that same formula till people just reject it?
Well, and that's, I mean, I don't know how much you follow, and I promise I'm kind of staying on topic here. I don't know how much you follow J.J. Abrams, but he did Cloverfield first,
Hmm.
and then he got the gig to do Star Trek.
Yes,
And
I love those
I
movies.
thought that both the Star Trek movies were actually stellar. I did
So did
not
I.
find any flaws with them. And I mean, granted, I'm not a Trekkie by any means. I mean, diehard Star Wars dude right here. But I loved his movies. And then he did Super 8. Did you see Super 8?
I did not see Super 8.
Well, I read an interview with JJ, and he goes, I loved Super 8, but what I realized in that movie is that I used too many lens flares. And that's a style that I want to get away from. So in the second Star Trek, he almost cut out all lens flares because he was tired of having the mantra that he just overuses these lens flares. Michael Bay's mantra is he just doesn't want to stick to how things are. He's got to screw up the mythos so much on any project that is not original, you know. Like
Yeah,
Transformers, he took so much away from the original ideology of Transformers, and then Dinobots are just. I mean, I didn't even see the movie, but from what I hear, the Dinobots in the movie are not even intelligent. They're just quote unquote animals.
hmm I haven't seen it either. The last one I saw in theaters was the second one, and I wrote it off saying I don't want to see another one in theaters. I did see the third one when it came to Redbox, and it was it was barely worth the dollar that I spent on it. And it hurts me to say that because I like Transformers. I've always liked Transformers. But when Hollywood, and then this isn't just Michael Bay, but when Hollywood gets hold of something that's already established and already has its sort of imprint, we get these different variations on it, and it hardly ever lives up, or it can very rarely reinvigorate the entire franchise into something new, which I kind of feel like that they did with the new Star Trek movies. I feel like they definitely made those movies mean something different than what Star Trek meant before. Um, Now, I'm sorry I just got off on this because I looked up to see who wrote Turtles, and I don't see his name anywhere. It sounds like he's just producing it. But do you know who's the voice of Leonardo?
Who?
Johnny Knoxville.
Nuh-uh.
That's what IMDb says. Yeah.
What? Maybe someone is playing a vicious prank, but I don't think so.
You know, yeah. Maybe he'll pull a neat little performance out, but all the roles I've ever seen him in have been goofy,
Yeah,
and
pretty
I
much.
I could see that being like a Michelangelo-esque type. Not even really that. I wouldn't want that, but not Leonardo. Come on.
Yeah, and I mean, you remember Corey Feldman was the original Donatello, and that
Yes, he
didn't.
was.
I mean, looking back now, if you were to, because sometimes I daydream, it's a thing, and I just go, man, I wonder what it was like back then when you didn't have the internet to kind of guide you along.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watch the Turtles, you would not know who the casting voice was. You wouldn't have saw like you even if people were taking pictures back then, you wouldn't have witnessed Corey Feldman on set. He did the voiceovers in a studio.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you
because they
saw
were.
it in the end credits, and you'd just be like, really? I knew that voice was familiar.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, yeah, because they replaced like everyone, but like, was it Raphael? Maybe I think he's the only one whose voice actually was still like the original actor who was originally supposed to play him. But yeah, just to reiterate, I am so nervous about it. I don't know if I want to go see it, especially with Sin City around the corner and with Guardians coming out. I'm going to try and see that. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to it with work. I got a lot of stuff going on at the beginning of August. I would like to go see it, trust me. It does look interesting to me. And that's coming from someone who hasn't read Guardians. Just as a film, it does look interesting and goofy and fun. Uh, I'm not sure if I'm going to squeeze Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in. I might wait.
Well, I think just for the sake of science, or this podcast, whatever you want to call it, I will probably see it and tell you whether it is worth watching or not, just to
Well,
save you the headache.
I want to thank you for making that sacrifice for this podcast.
Anything. I'll do anything.
Thank you.
Well, that'll actually probably be a good trade-off because I planned as a definite that I have to see Guardians and Turtles, and I'm not sure that I will be able to squeeze in Sin City. So maybe that's how we'll play this. And if you tell me Sin City is absolutely awesome, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be. But if you tell me it's something I have to see in theaters because of the experience, I'm going,
Well, see, and I think the same way for Turtles. Right now, looking at it, I am just so far from being hyped because I'm too leery. But if you say, after all we've talked about, after all this sort of negative stereotyping, that, dude, no, this movie is really worth watching, you are going to be totally surprised. This movie kicks ass. I take everything I ever said about it back, then I will go see it.
I don't know if I'd go that far to say all those things, but if those words come out of my mouth, I mean, I'll try not to be biased about it. But I mean, as I said, this is my childhood. Like, I had, and I'm sure you did too, countless numbers of the figures. I had the Technodrome. I had the drill. I had the turtle bus. I had the blimp. I mean, I could go on for days about. I had Mondo Gecko and Baxter Stockman with the removable wings. I had the Super Shredder from the second movie. I mean,
I had Rat King.
Oh, Rat King, classic, all wrapped in bandage, looking kind of like a mummy with his red hair. I think there was also Manta Ray.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
And there was some, I can't remember their names now, but the alligator. I remember that little robot version of the Turtles that they made. Bebop and Rocksteady.
Metalhead was the turtle that was metal, and then Leatherhead was the alligator. And then you had what were they, Mousers?
Yeah, those little things.
Yeah, the little dudes. Yeah, those were cool. We could do a whole podcast on old school toys.
Oh, we could.
Remember trading Beast Wars figures?
Yes. In fact, we were a little bit older than the typical people or the kids would have been. I think we were in middle school when we were trading Beast Wars.
I liked it. I didn't care.
You, me, and Jason, we would pass them along.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like once we got done with them, okay, now I'll trade this one for that, okay, and then. Yeah, I definitely remember that. That definitely had a resurgence in the middle school. Because that was after Beast Wars was even done.
Yeah.
By about a couple years. So.
Yep. All right. So there's a topic Brandon and I know we're not really worried about segues, and I don't really give a damn. It's our podcast. We can do what we want. We talked a little bit about wanting to do comic book references and or entire songs and or entire albums dedicated to comic book characters in music. So I have some, Brandon has some, we've got a couple that we want to talk about together, but Brando, I think you have a good starting point because you have a nicer list. Mine's really only 2 artists because one artist I've got so many different things to talk about. So I'm going to let you start. And then we'll just kind of jump back and forth and discuss this.
Well, there's a lot of power metal bands and that do a lot of mythological stuff and fantasy stuff. But then there's a band from the good old U.S. of A. called Iced Earth. They're sort of if you could picture what they sound like, it's Metallica, Judas Priest, and Iron Maiden all had a baby, and this is what Eister sounds like. And they did an entire record called the Dark Saga on basically the story of Spawn and the characters within. And from beginning to end, it has such a neat little way of like weaving themes from the comic into like the different songs and the different styles, because you've got more of maybe downer and soft songs that represent, and then different aspects of the Spawn character at his low points, and then you got the more violent and songs when you talk about like the Violator, and then like when Spawn really gets angry. So they really touch on all sides of that.
Well, and I thought one thing that was cool about the Dark Saga, I also am a fan of Iced Earth. Actually, the first time I saw Iced Earth was with you.
Yeah, that is correct.
Was that the first time you had saw them?
Yes, yes it is, but I have actually seen them 2 more times after that.
Yeah, I haven't seen them since, which is really unfortunate. I want to see them with Stu.
Speaking of, they've actually did a comic reference song with Stu as well, which is Stu is their new lead singer. The singer on the other album was a guy by the name of Matt Barlow. But on the new one, it was not from their newest record, but the one before it, Dystopia, they have a song called V, which is inspired from the comic V for Vendetta. It was also a film. And I feel like it was such a few artists I feel can take a theme and make something good out of it and tell a story while still retaining something bland enough, not bland I should say, but to where you can relate to the song without knowing what it's about.
Yeah, I like the way you said that.
And I feel like they do that very, very, very well.
Well, and I think with Dark Saga, this was the point I was going to kind of get back to, but scatterbrained. I don't mean to be. I thought it was awesome, though, that, Todd McFarlane allowed them and gave them the art for the cover of Dark Saga.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is drawn by the dude, that created Spawn. So that's like, it's not like, trying to think of it's not like somebody writing a song about or an entire album about the Ninja Turtles, and then they don't have the Ninja Turtles on the cover, like this was, hey, we're Iced Earth. Hey, you're Todd McFarlane. This is our tribute to you and how awesome your comic is. And Todd was like, I am in love with that. You can use the art. Okay, done.
Well, see, yeah, and you've really got to love, you really got to love the subject matter to dedicate an entire album to it. If you're going to make a song, if you're going to make, even like a couple songs about a character or about a story, whether it's in comics or otherwise, to make an entire album out of it, you've really got to love the subject matter.
Well, and I mean, we know that especially the second demo that the band ever put out was in theaters, and I mean, that was a themed album, and that was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever been a part of writing anyways, because it's like, oh God, there are so for those of you who haven't heard the album, we decided to write every song about a movie. So contain an entire 2-hour movie into one song. And I think we had some real gems on that album. Legitimate songs that, if they were to be polished up now that I'm an older musician and I've kind of honed in my craft a little bit, there were some songs on there that were really properly good. But it was really difficult to even get that,
Well, see, I agree, and that was in 2005 we were writing that, nearly 10 years ago now. It's okay, so now we're going to date ourselves. And
oh, God. Wow, yeah. 10 years ago. But, dude, that's crazy.
I remember the writing sessions for that, and that was incredibly tough. And as you said, the songs that did well are the ones that we consider the gems. And since we were basically saying this entire demo has to be about this, there are other ones in there that didn't do as well because we just couldn't capture that sort of success in those songs as we did with the other ones. But there's also on that one we had several in there that were films based on comics as well.
That is very true, actually. We had Night of the Daywalker. That was about Blade.
Mm-hmm.
We had Urban Cowboy, which funnily enough was about Sin City, just the story that about Marv. So really we contained that to a story within the movie,
Yes.
not about the
We
entire
had
movie.
3 Days to Vengeance, which is about
The
the
Crow.
story of the Crow.
Trying to think.
And I
Oh,
don't. Oh, so
we,
this.
and there's one more actually. Question mark, question mark, question mark.
Yeah.
Which,
Okay.
wow. That was not one of the gems, but the others I
No,
would consider
it wasn't.
mostly gem-like.
But when we have experience with trying to capture different themes and not just using our own personal matters, but the idea is to take that song to make it about a certain subject matter and to still make it personal. I think that's what we started at with this topic, and so I feel like Iced Earth has done that probably the best. Moving on here to get off that track, um, probably one of the easiest one that you could point out is Kryptonite by Three Doors Down, referencing like Superman and superheroes, and basically trying to regulate that down into everyday people.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember when that song hit the air, I was like, that's really creative. Why didn't I think of that? Man, that's a really cool thing. And I mean, I've never seen Three Doors Down live, and that's still a song that I consider one of their best all time, hands down.
Well, I mean, it's so catchy, so radio friendly. And I have another one. This one isn't as radio friendly, but it's by the metal band Anthrax, one of the big four of thrash. And their song "I Am the Law" is inspired by another comic, Judge Dredd.
Yeah, which, you told me that one before we came on air, and I did not know that.
I didn't know it before I researched it. I was when we talked about the topic, I was like trying to find other ones. So I was like looking through, trying to find some, and lo and behold, I guess that is actually inspired by such work. And as you said, I didn't know it either. But in closing for myself, and I'll let you kind of go on to your picks, I want to kind of say that there's a lot of different bands from the power metal genre where you could take a song, or could easily take a song, or and make it into a great comic themed song. And there are so many bands to name off. I'm not even going to try, but I'll just kind of pass it on to you now so you can talk about the artists that you would like to talk about.
Well, it's funny. I just thought of one that we both missed, and most of the listeners will not have ever even heard this band, and thanks to you, I have had the honor of enjoying this band. But Superheroes by Ed Guy.
Yeah.
I mean, dude,
yeah.
come on now.
Wow. Yeah, I totally skipped over that, didn't I?
It's such a great song. It's so catchy. That riff is so much fun. Yeah, I love that song.
It's not directly inspired by any one superhero, but it's just covering the theme of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
along that, and as much as I am not a fan of their style of music now because they've changed to sound mostly country, but Chad Kroeger and Josie Scott from Nickelback and Saliva, respectively, doing Hero on the Spider-Man soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
You had said that when we were off air, and that's another great one. Just like, it's simple, it's catchy, it's radio friendly, and it's about superheroes, putting them in the spotlight where they deserved to be at the time. I've got a couple here. Really, I have one that we talked about a little bit before we came on, and then the other artist I have, I'm going to try my best to remember because I've just been like listening as much as I can to this artist to try to catch as many as I can. But first of all, this song was 100%, well, we'll call it 50%, I guess, because the first half isn't. But Megadeth's Holy War's Punishment Due. The first half of the song, Holy Wars, not about any comic book or anything like that, but Punishment Due, the second part, which starts with the sitar in the song. Dopest sitar solo ever. The second half is about the Punisher. I mean, and that's just totally badass. Like, because you would not, unless you studied them and read the lyrics and understood every line of what Dave is singing, it's just a second half of the song.
Yeah, it was pretty vague. I mean, he doesn't outright say this song is about the Punisher. You pretty much have to pick up on it.
Yeah, and luckily enough, we figured it out. So I know this genre is going to be probably shocking to some people that I even listen to any of it, but I do not enjoy rap music 98% of the time in the most non-racist way possible. The only rap I can stomach for more than 20 minutes is Eminem. Eminem's a Detroit boy, you know. He didn't have a lot growing up. But he has referenced comic books, comic book characters, specific locations in comic books so many times. I mean, I was going to count and try to say them all, and I actually got to a point where I was like, I will literally spend 3 hours just listing stuff, and that's not fun. So I'll do some bullet points. Obviously, he wrote a song off of the Eminem show, was called Superman. And, you know, that wasn't about Superman, but it was a reference to Superman, whatever. In the album Recovery, on one of the songs, which I cannot think of the title, he says, flows tighter, hot-headed as Ghost Rider, cold-hearted as Spider-Man throwing a spider in the snow. Pretty cool, because he's just riffing. He didn't have to talk about Spider-Man or Ghost Rider. The fact that you dropped the name Ghost Rider gives you some pretty huge cred. On his latest album, in the song Rap God, he says, what does he say? The line is, the Dale Earnhardt of the trailer park, this planet is Krypton, no Asgard. You'll be Thor, and I'll be Odin. Boom! More comic books. You know, and just the way he does it. I mean, I looked in his catalog, and as early as his second demo in 1994, he was referencing comic book characters. And, I mean, that's when he was just a punk, before he had all the success. And now, I mean, over 20 years later, he has so much success, and he still just goes so hard about the comics. I mean, there are references scattered all over Eminem's catalog. If you really want, it's like a treasure chest. You just try to find it. Find all the different references, because they're really cool. They did, there was a song, Business. I mean, he's talking about Batman and the bat symbol, and I there's just so much as far as how he has done his normal songs, talking about whatever he wants to talk about, regardless of if it's something you believe in. I respect him so much because he just puts it out there that he is a comic book fan. Actually, in Legacy, which, Brandon, you know that song because it was the theme for the Bray Wyatt John Cena matchup at WrestleMania. He says something about retreating to his room and reading the comics, you know, and the comics being his strength. And the comic books were what taught him to take all the negatives that someone throws at you and turn them against that person and turn everything into a positive. So, that being said, that's what I have for comics and music. And actually, last thing about Eminem, him and Busta Rhymes, I haven't listened to the song, so I don't know anything about it, but they definitely just released a song, and the image for the single is a drawing of them as superheroes, which I thought was pretty cool.
You know, like, as I was saying before, you really have to love the source material to dedicate so much to it. You know, he definitely makes his music in a different way and doesn't really dedicate, like, you know, all of one song or one album about just that story. But the fact that he's had so many references over his entire career, I mean, there's absolutely no question what he grew up on and what he looked up to when he was a child, and that still resonates with him to to this day as his career has evolved.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I have always had the pipe dream that if you were to name one comic book fan celebrity that I would love to have on the show as an interview, and to me it would be Eminem, because he does never get a chance to talk about the comic book stuff. It's always the people in the rap game talking about all that stuff, the beats and all that, those things. Like, I don't care about all that. Make your music. It's good. I want to know, like, what you're reading. You know, what comic collection do you have? What's your white whale? What's something you want but you just don't go and buy even though you have the money? I'm sure he's got comic books that he doesn't have that he'd love to have, you know?
Right.
I mean,
Oh,
Nicolas Cage, Action Comics #1 got stolen, and he had to buy it back for, like, what, 2.4 million?
Right. Yes, it'd be really interesting because, as you said, he doesn't really get a whole lot of chance to talk about that issue or that topic. So, getting to talk about that and just solely that it'd be interesting because, in comparison, whenever someone talks to like Axl Rose, he's always talking about the album that is never going to be released, that might be released, what he's doing if he decides to do an interview. But then I remember he was on a radio show where he showed up because Chris Jericho was there, I think, and then they ended up talking for like an hour, a couple hours, just about old music and their favorite bands growing up, and favorite bands, besides the ones they were in and all that stuff. And they said that he really opened up, and he's a kind of a private guy, but he really relaxed, and it was very like an enjoyable just sit down chatting. So I kind of think that maybe Eminem would be the same way. You get the topic off of work, and then people automatically end up getting more relaxed with the conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, another person I'd love to have on here, and I know that it would be a pipe dream because he'd be afraid that we would take it to a topic that I'm sure he doesn't want to publicly speak about, but I would love to have CM Punk on the show.
Oh, of course.
He's a huge comic book dude. I mean, he's got, the Cobra tat from G.I. Joe on his arm. Awesome.
Oh, I know. That'd be really neat. So, did you have any other artists that you wanted to go over?
Not really. It was, like I said, it was just kind of a quick list. I know there are tons of references out there. There really are, almost overwhelming. But I will say now that if you're listening to the podcast, find me on Instagram at Draxus_rocker. Find Brando at...
I'm actually not on... Actually, wait, did you say Instagram? Yes, I am on Instagram.
Awesome.
Of course I am. I am on Instagram as Branden Games, and you can follow me on there. I'm growing my retro collection, growing my gaming collection as a whole, not just retro, but I'm also... You're going to see some pretty cool stuff that I'm uploading. I'm working on my game room soon, so I'm hoping to get some pictures of that in progress and everything as well. So, yeah, come on there, follow me, and, check out what I'm doing. Follow Nate, see what he's doing. Oh, Nate, here's what I'm going to go ahead and plug this for you, and then you need to tell them the specifics. You guys need to go check out his spray paint art.
Oh, thanks, sir. Funny that you said that. I was actually just getting ready to say... You're working on your game room, which means I need to work on making the paintings for you. If you would like to check out some nerdy comic book related spray paint art, I do all stenciling. I try to create 99% of the designs myself. I do borrow ideas from other places and create a nice, solid thing that's my own. But you can check out my nerdy comic book art on Instagram at rocker_art_studios with an S. Do not forget the S. You will not find me without it. Brandon, you got to tell me what name like 2 or 3 different characters you might want and a couple ideas you might have. Not necessarily right now, off air, if you want, but and I'll get to working on those. I need to get back in the swing of actually painting. I've taken the last month off, new job and all that stuff. So, speaking of games, you were talking about your game room. What are you doing with your game room?
Well, a buddy from work is going to be giving me his old TV. I want to say he said it's about 60-inch projection TV because I want an older television so I can play a lot of my older systems on it and be a little bit more truer to where to what they were designed for, not necessarily this high tech LED stuff that we got today. And so he's giving me that for free as long as I go get it.
That's a sweet deal.
So that's the first thing. I'm going to pick up a buddy of mine's futon. I'm going to have that in there for sitting. I'm going to get our old computer desk in there for like a workstation. And I need to work out getting shelves and stuff for different sort of displaying. I've got 317 games right now, so I'm gonna have to try and figure something out as far as that goes. But basically, I want an area where I can have all of my retro systems and all my systems I want hooked up in one spot. That way, if I go out and buy a game, that is a Super Nintendo game, I can come home, plug it right in, try it out, and if I want to play through it, I can play through it. It's also, my theory is, having all that stuff set up, it'll be more of a what I want to play, and I have a lot more lists that I could choose from because I don't have to dig stuff out, hook it up, go through all the motions of that.
Yeah.
So
I know I saw somewhere online somebody had created a retro game room, a little pretty kind of basic, kind of probably what more towards you're going. I know there are some online that are like full arcades and stuff, and we're not on that level. Maybe if someday this podcast goes places. But I saw this this design, and it was the TV in the middle, and then all the shelves were built right off of the TV, like not attached, obviously, but right off of, and each shelf had its own system, and then each system had as many games on it as the shelf could fit. So then you go in, you flick a switch on your NES, you have whatever game you're going to play. Oh, I'm bored with the Ninja Turtle game for NES. Let me turn this off. Go over to my Super, put in Mario Kart, click that on, boom, and it was just like super fast. It was really cool to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've seen something like that. There's a lot of different things I'm taking influence from. A lot of the gamers game collectors I watch on YouTube, taking some some inspiration from them as well. Right now, I'm getting it to where I can guarantee you it's not going to be the way I want it, but it's going to be the way that I can have it right now, and then I can update it as I go along. So, be that as it may, that's going to be my project. I've got the next couple weeks off of work, so I'm going to be getting that ready and up to go. Another project that I've been working on, I've been like last week, I went to Goodwill and got a Nintendo 64 controller for $3. And attached to it was the transfer pack that you needed for, well, you didn't need it, but it came with the Pokemon Stadium, so you could put your Pokemon Game Boy games and transfer your Pokemon trained Pokemon to the Stadium game. And I wanted it for that. I mean, for $3 just for that, I was like, yeah, I want it. But then I took the controller apart. It was in bad shape. It was dirty, and I ended up taking it all apart and fixing it. And so then I got a little cocky, and I wanted to take apart my GameCube controllers. I bought a Wavebird, and I wanted to replace the C-stick on it. So I did that. And then just last night, I did a tremendous undertaking. I've never taken apart one of these before until last night. I took apart my PS4 controller and replaced the DualShock 3 or 4 sticks with the Xbox One sticks.
Yeah, you had told me about that, and like I told you when we were talking on Facebook, I would have been so nervous, so stressed, just every move like, I'm going to ruin this thing, and it's $60. And $60 is a lot of money.
Oh, it is. It is. And, my hands were sweaty. I was trying not to shake. These PS4 controllers are a different beast than taking apart an older Nintendo controller, 64, GameCube, anything like that. There's so many. I had a problem. I was really nervous about taking off the ribbon cables for the touchpad. But once I was able to get to it, get the analog sticks right off, the Xbox One sticks fit perfectly. Slide it back in, put it back together. I wasn't getting power at first, so as I was taking apart the controller, it got power. So I may open it back up just to make sure everything is hunky-dory, but I played with it last night and today, and it seems to be working fine.
Well, that's good. I saw the picture, and I was like, man, that actually looks really cool and much more comfortable. Where did you see to do that? That's not something you just do. You don't mix Xbox and PlayStation, It's like passé. It's sacrilege.
Some would say. Fanboys would definitely say that. I definitely try not to be a fanboy, but with to with the DualShock 4 sticks, my thumbs would start sliding, and the way that they do their sticks is kind of different than the way they have before, and just the tops of them would be a little bit more smooth, and my thumbs would kind of move as my hands got sweatier. And actually saw it on YouTube. There's only one video so far of this guy doing it, and I'm like, well, I could do that. So I ordered the sticks on Amazon and got it here, and I think it came in on Thursday. And the original idea is I was going to save it for when I get my game room ready. I'm going to do a project, and I'm going to have that desk. But I could not wait. Once we got home from our festivities yesterday, I want to get this in there. I want to see how this feels, because if I don't like it, I can switch it back, and I'm not out a lot of money. But so far, I like the way they feel. Uh, they're about the same size, uh, but the Xbox One sticks stick up a little bit more, like they're a little taller, so they do feel just a little bit different. But there's nothing that you can't get used to.
Yeah, I mean, we played on the big fat boy Xbox controllers, and those were ridiculous.
Oh boy.
I'm surprised there weren't like 27 murders because of the controller itself.
That especially if you throw it, because that thing's like a brick.
I know. Ridiculous. And Xbox, why are you adding a black and white button? Racist. You know?
Yeah, I tell you what though. I mean, as far as that goes, then there are things about the new Xbox One controller that I don't like. I don't, and it's funny because one of the things that I didn't like about it when they changed it were the sticks. I'm like, I want these sticks to be bigger. But the funny thing is, as I put Xbox One sticks and the PS4 sticks, that's because I like the PS4 sticks a little bit less than I do like the Xbox One sticks. And I don't like the way that they did their triggers. They put rumble in them, but if you don't have that on, if you're just hitting the button, those triggers are just so light. I don't like how they feel, and I don't like the way I hold my controller. I'm always hitting the bumper button, which
Oh.
isn't even a button; it's like a clicker, and I don't like how they raised up the bumper. But everything else on it, if the controller feels okay, those are nitpicks. But for me, you said why did they do certain things on their first controller, and I'm wondering why did you fix what wasn't broken on your 360 controller?
True. All they had to do, literally all they had to do on the Xbox 360 controller was make the regular Xbox controller a little bit smaller and wireless. The end.
For the 360, I would have fixed the D-pad, and I would have put the batteries in, or better yet, not even take batteries, take a rechargeable batteries, like I don't know every other controller that's on the market for the other two companies. I don't get why you don't have a rechargeable battery in your controller.
Well, Microsoft is money grubbing. That's their name. They should just be called money grubbers, not Microsoft. Everything is an add-on. Working at GameStop, I learned that. Microsoft makes money because you have to have add-ons. It was $100, no lie, $100 to replace your power brick for a 360.
What?
$100. That is a quarter of the price when it was brand new.
Shoot.
Think about that. And
That's
then
ridiculous.
later down the road, hard drives were $60 to $100.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Oh yeah.
and you would they sold the basic bundle back in the day with no hard drive because they knew eventually you're going to have a hard drive.
Oh, they still do that. They still have the 4 gigabytes models out where you gotta, upgrade and like the hard drive, and those hard drives are unique to that console. Like I think the PS3 hard drive was just a laptop hard drive, so you could buy a terabyte laptop hard drive, plug it into the PS3, and you're good to go.
Yeah. And
And
I could talk for days on games. It's really funny to me because I collected games more modern, obviously, before you did,
hmm
and always had a love for the retro. And then you now collect the retro games that I would always have loved to collect when I
yeah,
was, now I'm in my comics. So,
it's funny. And as far as like, I haven't had a lot of pickups here lately as far as games go. Um, I did pick up a couple games for like $7 a couple weeks ago. One of them is retro. It's a PS2 game called Maximo, and that's made by Capcom. And I believe I've heard that was like a pseudo sequel to like Ghosts and Goblins, Ghosts and Ghouls. I think that's what it was on the Genesis or something like that. I have to actually look at it. To be honest with you, of course that says a lot for me and my retro cred, but I can't really remember that. But the other one was I got a really cheap copy of Arkham City for 360, so I got that game back. I got that for $4,
Awesome.
and then right before that, this isn't retro, but I'm sort of counting it as retro, based on the name. I got Mario Kart 8.
It's grandfathered in.
Yeah, just because it is what it is and how long it's been around. To me, Mario is retro. And so when you release a new Mario, like they got the new Mario Brothers, they got Mario Kart, it feels retro to me. And I've been enjoying the heck out of Mario Kart 8. I picked it up just a couple weeks ago, and I got it for $45. I got $15 off on it through some gift cards at Meyer, and I've been playing the heck out of that. But I've also been playing on the PSP, is the PSP version of Lunar Silver Star, which is Silver Star Harmony, and that game was also released for Sega CD and the PS1. It has a sequel, but I don't know if that ever came to the PSP. Pretty much, the other two versions are going to run you about $30 just for the game. The PS1 version came in a collector box, which is about $50 I've seen in my local area. And then I found the PSP remake for like $15. I jumped on it. Basically, I never played it back in the day. I never got to it. I didn't see it in stores. I didn't have a Sega CD. And I would love to add those to my collections because I'm playing through it on the PSP and I really love it. It's a kind of an old school RPG, turn-based, anime style. It's that Japanese anime influenced and everything. But I'm playing through that on my PSP, and I'm a little bit late to the game. But as I mentioned, I got Arkham City. I picked up Arkham Origins for a really good deal about a month ago, and I'm finally trying to play through that. And I'm liking it so far. But my only gripe with it is that it since it plays so similar to Arkham City, that I'm having to go through and do all this stuff all over again. And I get this problem of I'm not sure if I want to 100% it because I feel like I've already done it.
Yeah. I actually felt the exact same way when I was doing my first playthrough. Arkham City was something special. I think we talked about this on the last podcast. Arkham Origins was fun. It was a decent story. It was a cool bridging the gap thing while Rocksteady worked on what looks to be possibly the best game of 2015.
I agree. I am so looking forward to that. And then the last game that I've been playing, I was playing it just before we started recording, was the remake of Strider, and they re-released that for Capcom remade it for a PS4 and Xbox One. I don't know if it's on Wii U or not. It might be, but I've been playing through that, putting my new controller sticks to the test, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's a really, I didn't play Strider back in the day, but I have since I learned about it before I knew they were even doing a remake. And when I heard they were doing a remake, I got excited because now I can test out the new one and get it before I hunt down the older ones. And it's actually free this month on PS Plus for the PS4. So if you got Plus, jump on that. It's a hell of a game. I'm really enjoying it.
I do not yet have my PlayStation 4. I hope to have that soon.
Are you going to be getting? Sorry to interrupt here, but are you going to be getting Destiny?
I think so. Destiny looks interesting. I'm very intrigued.
I did not get to play the alpha, but from what I've seen, because I actually watched people play it on Twitch, and what I've seen, it seems like a much more organized and better built Borderlands style of game.
Ooh, I loved Borderlands.
And mixing in with that is like the group events, where you're wandering around you almost have like a home base of operations, a big kind of open land, and you can go and I don't know how many of you at one time can go do it, but you can do like a big group boss battle, And then once you defeat that boss, you all get a crazy amount of XP. And one thing I also heard is that all the loot is yours. So if me and you are playing together, you get your loot. Your loot doesn't show up on my screen. Your loot shows up for you and you alone. So it's not like a loot grab. Everyone's not trying to run for their own, like, to try and get other people's loot. So I thought that was one thing about Borderlands that I did not like, is that it was always just a kind of a race
It
to get
really was.
everything.
Speaking of Borderlands, we can talk for a few minutes on this. We've got plenty of time. Did you play all the expansions and stuff for Borderlands, or?
I did not, no.
Okay, because there was the Mad Moxie expansion, and it had literally just surviving waves and waves and waves of villains, like, just kind of essentially see how you stack up. They throw a ton of enemies at you, and then there's always a boss at the end of each level, quote unquote, and you're just in this like battleground area. The loot was, as you said, my biggest complaint. Sarah and I would play, and I would kill the boss, and then she would just walk up and get the awesome weapon that he only drops there. And I was, what the hell? What are you doing? Drop that. I want that gun. You have a cool gun that shoots fire. I don't. So that was a big complaint, and you telling me about that with Destiny, I think that's gonna really make some awesome gameplay. It's really neat. If it works how I imagine it working, everybody, the monster will spawn the same amount of loot, but you only see the loot that your character fought to get, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to me, it looks like they're bringing like the best of Bungie, that Bungie created for Halo. They bringing in a Borderlands style of multiplayer, and they're also kind of merging a little bit with like a more power based class. There's a class in there that does a lot of like kind of power. It's kind of like a Mass Effect style. So you got like a weird little mixture of styles, and it's definitely on my watch list. And I really do think I'm going to be picking it up, especially now that there are games that were going to be coming around it that have been pushed back and delayed, like Xenoblade Chronicles X on Wii U and Batman Arkham Knight. Now that those have moved, those have definitely given Destiny, I think, a bigger pickup ratio. I think people are going to be picking that up more now that there's games not clouding that time frame.
So I got to ask, you were talking about Mario Kart. How far along are you in the Grand Prix? I don't know if you do the Grand Prix, but I do.
Let's see. Last time I played it, because I'm also playing it with my wife as well. We're like basically teaming up on this thing to beat it. And last time I played it, I don't know if we're halfway through the 100s or not, but I didn't know this. Somebody told me this, and I haven't looked it up to see if it's true. If you star on 150, does it put a star on all the other ones too?
I can't tell you. And here's why I can't tell you. I was started with 50. I 3-star gold starred all of the 50s, moved up to 100, did the same, and now that's why I asked, I'm actually in the process of working on the 150s. I have 3-starred 150 Grand Prix and a lot, I'd say over 100 attempts on all the other ones because I get really frustrated. I wish I had some sort of capture card for the Wii U. This was Rainbow Road, the new Rainbow Road course. I had done all 3 races flawless up to that. So beat Bowser's Castle, the 2 before that, no big deal. Just stomping it. 10 coins for each. I'm guaranteed to get 3 stars. I have 10 coins. I'm in the lead. Final lap, coming to the finish line. I got hit with 1 blue shell and 6 red shells in a row and finished 11th.
Wow. You just got trolled hardcore.
That's what you call bullshit. That they should just name Mario Kart bullshit.
Man, that is like that is a big gripe for me as well. Is if you're doing so well and it just takes that one like instance just to ruin everything, and I am so lucky that those game pads cost so much because they probably would have went flying.
Yeah, I know, right? Luckily, what I do is I will play only when I'm sitting in bed or by something soft. So if I am going to angrily, quote unquote, throw it, it's onto the bed that is super soft. So, man, I had something and then I just brain friedness.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think we pretty much covered everything that we were gonna want to talk about for this episode.
Yeah,
We've kind of like went through it pretty quickly and got off on some tangents, but that's fine. That's kind of the way we are, really.
it's lucky that we kept it under 2 hours with all the stuff we wanted to talk about.
Oh, I know. I mean,
Um,
theoretically, I think this podcast could be called Journey into Tangents because that's kind of what happens whenever you and me get to talking
oh,
about
that's
anything.
awesome. Journey into Tangents with your hosts, us,
Us.
tangenting on about tangenty things.
Well, yeah, I think that wraps this one up almost. I think we're all out of topics.
Yeah, and it's usually we do a section where we have people ask us questions, and I think it slipped both of our minds to even do that. It is a holiday. Um,
I
you
kind of
know,
thought maybe we could wait a little while and get some more questions built up. And then
yeah.
instead of making it more of a regular thing, make it like, I don't know, once a month or something where you can get some built up and then kind of have a bigger segment on that.
Yeah, do once a month questions. I like that. We'll build them up. I will say here are a couple things I wanted to throw as little shout outs. My buddy Tim, first of all, he did have a question for you specifically, and I think you maybe quasi answered it. He wanted to know what comic books influenced you that kind of got you into feeling comfortable being on the show, essentially.
Okay, well, I mean, I am a huge Batman fan. And from that aspect, I do have a couple of Batman books. I'm not a comic collector per se, but the thing is that I love Batman. I love Spider-Man. I'm a I'm not necessarily say if I'd have one loyalty to any one company. And as you know now, I'm a pretty avid reader of The Walking Dead, and
Hell
I
yeah.
kind of feel that I kind of feel like you and me share such a bridging kind of a yin and yang thing where you're a comic collector and you are into you're into gaming just enough to where we could talk about it, and I'm a video game collector and I'm into comics just enough to where we could talk about it. And as far as like, I really about the books that inspired me or like wanted to like feel comfortable, I fell in love with The Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight Returns is such a classic. I mean, in my opinion, there are, I'd say, three main stories and more modern Batman stories that are must reads for comic book readers. Killing Joke, which was the death of Robin and all that jazz. Dark Knight Returns, which you just mentioned, and Hush.
And that's the other one I have. I don't have Killing Joke, but I do have Hush, and I love the Hush story as well. I thought that was just really well done and well written.
The character Hush, he's so different from any villain ever.
Yes,
His
I agree.
whole mindset is I have known from the beginning and I can destroy you and you can't stop me. Nothing can stop me. And I loved we almost went a whole episode without me even saying the word, but to be spoilerific, Arkham City, did you find Hush?
Yes, yes, I did. I've actually completed Arkham City 100%.
Awesome.
Yes.
I was shocked when he ended up in the game. I was like, "No way!"
See,
Ah!
yeah, we talked about how magnificent that game is as a Batman story, and also as fan service. It does so much to satisfy fans of the character, the comics, the movies, the animated series. They did so much to just bring the entire fan base in from different aspects of how you grew up with it or how you like it, and just give you one great, amazing like story arc.
Yeah, they really did. I know once I 100%ed, I went online and looked at cheat codes and stuff because that's the old school gamer in me wanting to see what different hacks and stuff they put in the game. And I love that they put big head mode in the game. Which I do believe is like hold right and left triggers and rotate counterclockwise when you have the disruptor, something like that, or the decoder, and you go big head, which is hilarious. No, I am blessed. I can honestly say that I am blessed and lucky that I've got you as a great friend first and foremost, but the fact that you are coming on to be the co-host of the show, and as I said earlier, I would love to get Patrick in here. The three of us could just talk for days. There are so many he's a retro gamer, he's a rocker, he loves wrestling. Like, we all kind of are bridges to our own worlds together, So you could just talk for days. I feel like, I know we do Journey into Comics here, but I think at some point we really need to do like 1 or 2 episodes about Monday Night Wars and all things wrestling.
You know what? If there's an audience for that and they want to hear it, we could talk about that, as you said, for a long, long time. We've got our own opinions. We've got our own views on it. And especially, if we get Patrick on, it would be a great conversation.
Yeah, I almost want to start talking now, but I'm just like, no, just don't mention how you feel because it will start and then we'll be 2 hours in and be like, oh man, we should just stop talking.
No, I think we need to kind of wrap this one up a little bit.
Okay, well, everybody, as we said earlier, we are on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/The Voice of Survival. Brandon, do you know the reference for that?
Voice of Survival.
Oh, you did that really good. That was really good. I actually quite
did it with my
that.
movie voiceover guy voice. Remind me, what is it?
That is from the first Infamous.
Oh.
This is your Voice of Survival speaking.
Yes.
Go on and on and on.
Good
yeah.
one.
Well, when I that actually dates when I personalized my Facebook because it was while I was playing that game. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'm stealing that. And I think I'm the only person that has it. There's no like Voice of Survival 2 or anything. So.
Right.
But I was going to say this way earlier and we tangented ourselves away from it. If anybody has any references to comic books in music that we missed, that are big ones that everyone should know, let us know and we will talk about it. We will give you credit and you will become a part of this podcast in your own little way. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Nate Phillips.
And I am Branden Stone.
And this is Journey into Comics. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Game on.